Hello and welcome back to the Dynamic Racing League 2020. We are heading towards the very end of the season with 6 races remaining. 6 races remaining can sound like a lot of races remaining, but the calendar has been pretty long this year, so 6 races remaining is actually very close to the end. Anyway, this time we are at Russia, a track which a lot of people don't really seem to like. Russia isn't my favorite track to drive because my favorite track to drive is Abu Dhabi, but Russia is my second favorite track to drive. But because of how many 90-degree turns it has, then I can see why some people aren't really into it. I actually think Russia requires very high accuracy in your driving, and you also have to be very careful with the track limits the whole time. So overall, I think that Russia is pretty challenging, but if you really aren't really a fan of 90-degree turns, then Russia is probably not for you. Scaife, he is on his outlap and we were riding on board with him. He nearly crashed into the barrier. He was probably already trying to push hard to get ready for his qualifying lap, but he nearly ended his qualifying there. But he was pretty lucky, he managed to avoid the barrier at the very last moment, and he can start his qualifying lap. So Scaife just started his qualifying lap at the same time. There are quite a few drivers on track, but we can focus on Scaife at the moment because he has already started his qualifying lap, and he will now be approaching the final corner of Sector 1, and indeed this is where Sector 2 starts, and indeed it's 33 seconds and 8 tenths in Sector 1. Looks like a solid lap with no mistakes, with no major mistake. This is where most of the overtakes happen. I need to drink because my mouth is so dry. So Scaife is approaching the final part of the track. This is a 90-degree turns chicane. He missed the curb and probably lost a few tenths, but we'll see how good this lap time is because Scaife is on the final straight, and Scaife obviously takes first place because he's the only driver to have completed a lap so far. There is also Alpomut on track. Graham took first place and Alpomut goes up in first place. Alpomut was right behind of Graham on track and took first place a second later. After that, Graham was in the lead for pretty much a second. And we also have Orb King. On a quick lap, and he is on soft tires. Like I always say, Orb King often plays with strategies, but this time he decided to start his qualifying on soft tires, so we'll see his real pace. Orb King on the final corner, and Orb King goes up in third place. There is Lezad in second place, so Alpomut, Lezad, Orb King, Jamie James, Little Paul's Graham, Scaife. Mart the Smerpus goes up in 6th place, and the last driver among the ones who have completed the lap is Scaife. In the meanwhile, quite a few drivers are trying to drive back to the garage. Liverpool is literally cutting every corner to reduce the amount of time it takes to drive back to the pits. It's actually quite satisfying to watch, I don't know why. He is basically driving on another circuit. Anyways, Alpamut K still in the lead. Still in the lead. Still means it's not still. And we have Matt on track, and he is in sector 3. Matt in sector 3, so almost in sector 3. This is where sector 3 starts. This is a pretty heavy braking zone. There was a car off track, but it was a ghost, so Matt could keep going, but it probably kind of distracted him. But Matt can complete his lap, and let's see if he can take first place. No, he didn't take first place because he probably had his lap invalidated. He probably had his lap invalidated because he still doesn't have a lap time, even though he did complete a lap. But there is still more than 10 minutes left, so Matt has the time to use new tires and complete a lap, but for the moment he still doesn't have a lap, and he is 14th. Six minutes left, and we have Orbeking on track again. He missed the curb, he missed the apex, so he probably lost a few tenths there. Like I was saying before the qualifying started, Russia requires very high accuracy in your driving, and in the meanwhile, Alpamut K betters his own lap time and extends the advantage he already had over Leidzad. We are riding on board with GFO. I was watching Orbeking because obviously we can't watch everyone at the same time, but GFO bettered Alpamut K's performance, and GFO takes the lead. Pretty weird racing line that Orbeking chose at the braking zone. Looks like Orbeking is kind of struggling. But we'll see how good this lap is. And he at the very last second he decided to drive back to the garage. He probably had his lap invalidated on the last corner because he was too aggressive on the curb, and probably cut the corner, because at the very last second he decided to completely change his racing line and drive back to the garage. In a very aggressive way. It looked like he had an NN radio. Is Matt on an out lap or on a quick lap? Because he is driving very slow. He was probably on an out lap because the graphics doesn't say that he is on an out lap, so he probably was on a quick lap, but probably had his lap invalidated again, or probably made a mistake and decided to give up. Beautiful Dutch flag on the helmet. 1 minute left, and Matt still doesn't have a lap time. So he won't have another chance. This has already happened different times. It happened at Monaco, where he never managed to complete a lap, and he completed his qualifying without a lap time and started almost at the back of the grid. And it also happened at Monza, where no, I think he already had a lap time at Monza, but he made a mistake on his final lap, on his last chance, and couldn't challenge Alpumutskei for pole. Now he won't have another chance because there is only less than 20 seconds left, which means that there won't be any time left for another lap when he will be on the final straight. He needs to be very careful because it's actually very easy to have your lap invalidated at Russia, because you have to play with the track limits to get a proper lap time. Jeff Leclerc still on pole and Alpumutskei second. Alpumutskei is on a quick lap according to the graphics, but let's focus on Matt, because this might be a very surprising result if he doesn't complete a lap time. A yellow flag in sector 2. Hughes moves, retires from the session. Matt approaching the final part of the track. Penultimate corner, last corner. Let's see if Matt takes pole. No, Matt doesn't take pole because he finishes third. Alpumutskei also has a checkered flag, so Alpumutskei won't be on pole, Matt won't be on pole either, and it's GFO on pole. The last winner, he made his debut on at Singapore and took the win, and he looked way quicker than Matt and Alpumutskei. And now he also takes pole, so GFO could really play a role in the rest of the remaining races. GFO Leclerc has been waiting on the grid for a while, waiting for everyone else to put the car on the grid, and finally everything is ready. So everything is ready. The lights are beginning to come on. Weird camera angle because I can't see anything. Looks like GFO Leclerc made a very good start, and the Matt took second place because Alpumutskei had a pretty bad start, but managed to keep third place at the list. So GFO, Matt, Alpumutskei, Lezad in the safety car already. There is already a safety car, and I don't know why, because there isn't any retired car. Matt Desmerpus was against the barrier, but he doesn't even have damage because he probably spawned and ended up very close to the barrier, but he wasn't even into the wall. You can see that Matt Desmerpus doesn't have any damage. He will just be last now. After that, don't know whether it was a mistake or a collision with someone else. Anyway, Matt Desmerpus now is last, but he doesn't have any damage, so he probably won't need to pit. I don't know why this safety car was deployed, because there isn't any car on track. Any damaged car on track. Brycey lacking a front wing. So Brycey will be driving back to the garage. Because he had a broken front. He didn't even have a front wing. He didn't have a broken front wing. He didn't have a front wing. So quite a few drivers. So Orbeking as well. And switches to hard tires. Orbeking decides to use hard tires, and I'm not sure he can get to the end on hard tires. I don't know why he pitted. I don't know if he had damage. He is now in 4th place, and now there's that moment when graphics show everything wrong. When the graphics shows everything wrong, it will take a few seconds for the graphics to go back to normal. Now Scaife is in the lead according to the graphics, which isn't obviously the case. There was a little pull against the barrier. We had a glimpse of it if you replay the video. There was little pull against the barrier. I don't have the chance to show him again because everyone has already driven past the corner where it happened. But Liverpool was against the barrier. Lap 3, and it looks like the safety car is going to drive back to the garage because GF4 Leclerc is taking a distance from the safety car and he is controlling the pace. Let's see if he surprises Matt at the restart. Matt stays very close to GF4 Leclerc at the restart. Matt stayed very close to Leclerc at the restart, and now Matt tries to use the toe. But he didn't have a DRS. So Matt didn't have the chance to attack GF4. The race has restarted, so GF4, Matt, Alpomut K, Lezad, Hughes moves, Graham, Crossidale, Spike, Lucas and Orb King because of that stop. Now Orb King is only 10th, and let's see what he wants to do with the strategy, because he is probably the only driver on hard tires. At least it looks this way, because most of the drivers seem to be on medium tires. Now Orbeking is right behind of Spike. Will Orbeking manage to overtake Spike even though Orbeking is on hard tires? There is a three-way fight, and Orbeking saw Stam noticed Stam at the very last second and avoided him. Another safety car. Brycey retired. Brycey is out of the race. It always happens. Another safety car. So basically the race has yet to start because very little time has been spent driving, and GF4 Leclerc has damage. GF4 Leclerc had damage. He had to change his strategy because of that. he lost a few seconds with the mechanics changing the wing, and now GF4 Leclerc rejoins in 10th place. GF4 Leclerc rejoins in 10th place, and he is on medium tires. Orb King decided to switch to hard tires. GF4 Leclerc also pitted but didn't switch to hard tires. And we'll see which strategy is better than the other strategy. The new standings: Matt, Hughes moves, Graham, Lucas, the two McLaren drivers in 3rd and 4th place. Then Crossidale, Orb King, Scaife, Matt Desmerpus, GF4 Leclerc 9th. Orb King already up in 6th place, and he is on hard tires, so he will have a longer stint on these tires than the other drivers, because he is surrounded by Crossidale and Scaife, and they are on hard tires. I think no one else is on hard tires because GF4 Leclerc chose medium tires. There should be at least another lap on the safety car, because it would have already driven in by now. And George Hellas pitting under safety car. There should be at least another lap on the safety car, like I was saying a few seconds before. And did GF4 Leclerc had another? I don't understand what's going on, because GF4 Leclerc had his wing changed before, or maybe it was Gox in the other Williams. I'm not sure. Maybe. And after the restart I saw a piece of a car flying, but I don't know whose piece it was. And now Lezad nearly made contact with Alpmut K, but he wisely decided at the very last moment to back off. Alpmut K 8th place, and Stam behind Alpmut K. Stam is the first driver to get a penalty, with probably because of multiple warnings. Matt Hughes moves still second. Lucas and Crossidale, the two Ferrari, in 2nd and 4th place, and the two McLaren. No, the other McLaren is now down in 6th place. GF4 Leclerc needs to rebuild his race, to start from scratch, because he had his front wing changed. And again, I don't really understand what happened. I will rewatch it after comms, because I saw a Williams having the front wing replaced twice. So either GF4 Leclerc broke his front wing twice, or it was Gox the first time and GF4 Leclerc the second time. And now the two Ferrari close to each other. Hughes moves in 3rd place and Crossidale in 4th place. Matt, Lucas, Hughes moves, Crossidale, Orb King, Graham, Mart Desmerpus, and Alpmut K, the two Ferrari and the two Haas. Hughes moves obviously can't keep up with Matt and Lucas can't keep up with Matt. Let's see if Hughes Moves can keep up with Lucas, but I don't think he can, because Lucas is usually kind of close to the top in terms of raw pace. Hughes Moves obviously isn't. Crossy Day locks up, and Orb King uses this chance to go up in 4th place. Virtual safety car because Lezad retired. So yellow virtual safety car. This didn't cause another safety car, and Graham drives back to the garage, and also Stam, if I'm not mistaken, because it was an Alfa Romeo right behind of the McLaren. And Matt back to the garage as well. He already completed his stop because he is leaving the garage. He's driving out of the pit lane, and he is, I think, on medium tires. Yes, he is on medium tires. I have no idea how long these tires last. So time will tell. Lucas LA in the lead at the moment. Lucas happens to be in the lead. Lucas in the lead ahead of Hughes Moves. Hughes Moves has a penalty. Orb King is right behind of Hughes Moves, so he's actually second because Hughes Moves has a penalty. But he will maybe also overtake Hughes Moves on track. It's too early to wait for the checkered flag. And Lucas leading. Safety car again. This race really has been full of safety car. And now the race can restart. And George Hellas in 13th place. Lucas retired, and like we saw before, and it's a shame because he even happened to be in the lead. He obviously doesn't have the raw pace to win without others having some kind of issues, but he did happen to be in the lead. Then I don't know how he retired. Yellow flag in sector 1. And there was a nasty crash, spike in a wrecked Red Bull. It looked pretty bad, and it's also a high-speed corner. The Graham retires as well, even though he looks like he had no damage. He probably had something broken because he decided to retire. Yellow flag in sector 1 and 2. Yellow flag in sector 1 and 2. Hopefully this doesn't end up in a crash, because it was a three-way fight right before the heavy braking zone. Orb King now all over Jamie James. Matt GFO. Let's see if Matt can try to get close to GFO Leclerc, because GFO was really quick in qualifying, and Alpmut K and Matt couldn't match his pace, even though Alpmut K was pretty close. He was only less than 2/10 slower, so probably Alpmut K would have the pace to keep up with the GFO Leclerc, but let's see if Matt is fast enough to get closer instead of just keeping up. So GFO, Matt, Jamie James, Orb King, Stam, Hughes Moves, Mart Desmerpus, Alpmut K, Arpamut K doesn't have a penalty, Orb King doesn't have a penalty, he's always very intelligent, and I always say this. And Matt doesn't have a penalty, and Jeffo doesn't have a penalty, so only 1, 2, 3, only 4 drivers without a penalty. Jamie James has a penalty, Stam has a penalty, Hughes Moves has a penalty, Matt Desmerpus has a penalty, Scafe has a penalty, Crossy Dale and George Ellas do as well. Yellow flag in sector 3. George Ellas gets a 3-second time penalty, multiple warnings. The last these laps have been pretty quiet. GF4 Leclerc has a penalty, and Matt, I think Matt won't even try to get closer because Matt is actually winning. I said it at Singapore. This is starting to be a pattern because it's easy to exceed the track limits in this game, and most of the races and many races are decided because of this. So penalties really have determined many final results. Hughes moves. No, this is Crossydale in the other Ferrari. He is very far from Arpamut K, but he also has a huge advantage over Hughes Moves, so he probably is in free practice. He isn't racing anyone, and he won't be racing anyone unless he makes some mistake. So Crossdale will probably finish 7th. Arpamut K all over the back of Jamie James. Jamie James has a penalty, so Arpamut K is theoretically is actually already up in 5th place, but because Jamie James is holding Arpamut K back, Arpamut K can't attack Orb King unless he finds a way to get past Jamie James very quickly. And Orb King is on the podium. Orb King is on the podium. I think Arpamut K is the only driver who wants to overtake, because because Orb King is already on the podium and he doesn't need to overtake Stam because Stam has a penalty. So Orb King probably won't be taking any risks because Orb King is pretty cold and doesn't and likes playing with intelligence. That's what I was trying to say, and tries to use intelligence. Orb King is very far from Matt. Arpamut K and Jamie James fighting. Like I was saying, Arpamut K is the only driver who needs to overtake somebody. Arpamut K and Jamie James very close. Arpamut K needs to make sure he doesn't retire because he can still finish 11th. So he needs to overtake Jamie James, but at the same time he also needs to make sure that he completes the race and gets to the end. Jamie James is really keeping Arpamut K behind and preventing him from attacking Orb King. So Orb King probably hoping that Arpamut K won't get past. And Orb King, it's funny how Orb King just wants to stay close to Stam. It's obvious that Orb King isn't trying to attack Stam. Jimmy James locks up. Orbeking knows he is on the podium. Alpamut K now can overtake Jimmy James, but he probably won't have the time to overtake Orbeking and take the podium. Alpamut K now got past. Jimmy James probably lost a small piece of the front wing because I saw a yellow piece flying, and indeed Jimmy James front wing looks damaged. Now Alpamut K behind of Orbeking, but I don't think Alpamut K can catch Orbeking in a few seconds. Matt overtook GFO Leclerc. Matt overtook Leclerc. He didn't need to, but he probably was so much faster that he managed to overtake GFO Leclerc in a safe way, and Matt takes the win both on track and officially. So we didn't see the overtake that put Matt in the lead, and now Stam with Orbeking all over the back, and Orbeking up in second place and Alpamut K up in third place. So Matt, Orbeking and Alpamut K goes up in third place because of the penalties, and Stam ended up in sixth place, even behind of Jimmy James. So Stam probably had more penalties than Jimmy James. And GFO Leclerc, I forgot to say, GFO Leclerc down in fourth, even though he is showing that he can play a role in the championship because he is very fast, and Matt and Alpamut K are really struggling to fight him.